And now, broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Hey, welcome back to the show on a Getaway Friday. It is the last hurrah for summer, otherwise known in some parts as global warming. But thank God gas prices are low enough that you can drive somewhere as long as you go to the right station. But that's not what Jerry Brown wants for you. He would like you to pay a whole lot more, and you need to remember that, because he really wants to control you. He doesn't want you to go off and have a nice holiday weekend. He doesn't want you in your car creating greenhouse gases. And if he can't raise the gas tax high enough, and if he can't control the oil market to keep fuel costs even higher, then he wants to ration gasoline. He wants to take you back to the 70s, but not in a good way. So if you're out there on the highways, if you are getting away, it was crazy. I was driving to Orange County last night, and I could not believe the traffic heading east. And I had to assume, because I had a light drive, it was incredibly quick. But I had to assume that a lot of that is people heading out of town, including today. The Noskinator is not here, so I am flying not completely solo. I've got Sean McNeil with me standing by. Sean, are you there? I don't know if he can hear me, so that will work on that. But this is one of those crazy news days where, once again, let me rephrase that. It's not a crazy news day. It's just a day that ends in Y, and things got worse for Hillary. Emails, yeah, that's a dirty word. That's a dirty word for her. One of the most serious potential breaches of national security identified so far by the community intelligence inside Hillary Clinton's private emails involves the relaying of classified information concerning the movement of North Korean assets, which was obtained from spy satellites. Multiple intelligence sources who spoke to the Washington Times on the condition of anonymity said concerns about the movement of the North Korean information through Mrs. Clinton's unsecure server are twofold. First, spy satellite information is frequently classified at the top secret level and handled within a special compartment called talent keyhole. This means it's the most sensitive form of all intelligence gathered by the U.S. And secondly, the North Koreans have assembled a massive cyber hacking army under an elite military spy program known as Bureau 121, which is increasingly aggressive in targeting systems for hacking, especially vulnerable private systems. The North Koreans, for instance, have been blamed by the U.S. for the hack of the Sony movie studios. So, I mean, she can claim all day long that the stuff that is on her server is Chelsea's wedding plans, and we know she doesn't communicate with Bill via email. So it couldn't have been very much personal stuff, but this is really serious, heavy-duty stuff. And you know, that plant caller that called the other day, I forget, her name was Marina. It doesn't matter how much of this they dig up. There are people out there who will never change their minds. They love the party. They love Hillary because she's Hillary. She's a woman. They want the first woman president to be a Democrat. That's all. And she represents the best chance. And look, you know what? I'll give it to you. If you are a mind-numb zombie Democrat, and by the way, I will use the same term for Republicans because there are mind-numb zombie Republicans who will vote for even the likes of Jeb Bush, then Hillary might be like your greatest candidate, like the candidate that your dream candidate. And it's no big deal to you. This is just more evidence of the right-wing conspiracy. This actually makes you like her more. So what that clearly means is you have no standards and you're not a thinking person, because to put someone who has misused and abused and violated the public trust and abused the power of her office and put the security of the country at risk, including an awful lot of assets that we have in the field for intelligence. Assets meaning people, human beings. We already saw what she did at Benghazi. We saw she doesn't care what you think of it. She doesn't have to answer for it. She doesn't have to answer for anything. Well, I don't want a president who doesn't have to answer for anything. I want somebody who actually gives a damn what I think about issues and actually understands that they've got to sell me the idea, not force it on me. And I'm curious because I think with Hillary in particular, I think you're going to see, let's just fast forward and let's say Hillary was president. She's not going to build consensus. She's not going to win votes in the Congress. She's going to ramrod. She's going to do exactly what Obama did with executive orders. Just go around. Just go around, or buy people off with get some foreign governments to buy off some congressmen for you. But it isn't going to be. It's going to be House of Cards. It's not going to be Mr. Smith goes to Washington, and we desperately need a Mr. Smith going to Washington, or a Mrs. Smith, either way, or a Donald Trump, or Carly Fiorina, Ben Carson, Ted Cruz. We've got some great people running, and we're in for a very interesting election season. I can't recall ever seeing anything like this in my life. I don't know if you have or what your experience has been, but it's certainly. This is a time when, even though not a lot of people vote, the people who are voting are paying more attention. They're religious listeners to talk radio, to news. They watch. They go online. They're reading stories. The people who are engaged are more educated than ever, and it's literally become a threat to the party system in both parties, which is a good thing. In my estimation, but we will see what the ultimate outcome is. Don't forget, we've got Victor Davis Hanson coming up with an incredible article, like the most definitive article I've ever read on the illegal invasion of our country. So he is going to be joining us later on here in the Tim Donnelly Show. 323-746-TALK is the number. And we will be right back after these messages. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at Turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turners is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Hey, you are tuned to the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, the radio governor of California, Tim Donnelly. And we're going to go to the calls. Listen to me. We're going to go to the phones and take your calls. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, is this Mike from Wrightwood?
Yeah, just got back from California. It was nice to pay $1 less a gallon out there, but I guess it's cheaper now for most people, but still.
You said you just got back from California. You mean Arizona or?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Lake Havasu. They got that little California side of the border over there, so you go around and.
What's gas running over there?
What's that?
What is gas running over there?
You know, I paid at one place $2.45, I think it was, but there is one place that's kind of hilarious because it's like off to the side where there's about 50-mile stretch, and it's about $5 a gallon. But you got to just get on the other side of that bridge, on the other side of the river. Once you hit the other side of the river, you're good. But I kind of was wondering one thing about like Hillary. This investigation that they're doing on her could actually come back to say that she loses her clearance. So how can you be president of the United States if you lose all rights to having any type of clearance? Because what she did for any of the rest of us would have been automatically for us to lose our clearance.
That's a good point.
So now we got a situation. Yeah, so it's, if they're really doing their job, what she did, it's automatic. I mean, there's really not, even if they don't prosecute her at the least, they need to remove any access she has to classified materials and not allow her a job that allows, classified. And I mean, it's kind of, back in the day when I did the background on, Obama and the ties that he had, we used to have an SF, 96 form that we filled out and says, do you know anybody who's ever committed acts against, of course, United States? And we know Obama did. But he still was able to become president, get classified, access to everything, even though it's an actual disqualifier and an automatic disqualifier. Of course, it's now been changed to have you ever done it. So we have seen a change in that, in our clearance program. But what she's done, there's just no way. I mean, she's got to lose the clearance. I mean, the more we look, the more they find.
Yeah,
well, she could possibly get more.
See, given that the public seems to be so dismissive of pretty much anything they hear nowadays, you hear all kinds of evidence, but it's not like as simple as, hey, she went in and she robbed a liquor store. There you can get a visual. Here you hear, on the one hand, she had the classified data and it was on her private server, and I don't think most people can relate to that at all. And
if they watch the news and they see what's happened over the last couple of years with people that have gotten classified stuff and stuck it out and what harm it's done, they would see how important it is. But then when you also follow the fact that Hillary's been getting donations from some of these countries, and some of the information that she has and accesses or could access can help them out, it just it's becoming something that's amazing. And then you see like that radio crap, but the radio stuff they did with Trump, where they ask about certain terrorists and al-Baghdadi and things like that. That's something that if you were to ask Obama, he would probably have a hard time with if he wasn't prepared to go into it. Because when you use words like Baghdadi, al-Takriti, a lot of people have a last name that is related to the region that they come from. So al-Baghdadi, even though we know who he is, could actually be a lot of different people. Because anybody in Baghdad in that tribe is al-Baghdadi.
What you're referring to is a gotcha interview on, I haven't gotten into it yet, but Donald Trump went on air with another radio host who is just a massive sycophant to the Republican Party. He is in love with Jeb Bush, and he can't stay objective. So he went after Trump to try to make him look like an idiot by asking him really obtuse information. It wasn't like asking him, hey, who is the premier of this country, or, who is the prime minister of the UK, or, anything related to things he would actually need to know or be knowledgeable at that level. Because he's running a campaign right now. He is not someone who has been in government and been in politics. So he's going to have to, should he become president or should he become the nominee, that would be the point at which you begin to test him, because then what you do is you get a bunch of experts around you, because now it makes sense to do that. But right now it's about bigger general ideas, and it was a really dirty trick on behalf of the radio host, who shall remain unnamed on this program, because we won't give him any free advertising. But that's just low class.
But he actually did a pretty good job of saying, he's already made it clear that he's going to have the strongest military that in the world. And when it comes down to these people that are trying to do things against us, the one thing that against them is fear. They fear things. And I actually signed up on this campaign today, and I sent an email and told them straight out, the Quran specifically states that you can only make a deal with us if it's to deceive us. And people need to start putting that out there before they decide to even take any votes, and understand that Iran can only make that deal with us if they're going to deceive us, because they are a true Muslim nation that follows the Quran and the laws of the Quran. And for them to make any deals with us, it would have to be to deceive us, or they'd be violating the Quran, which we know they're not going to do. So, we need somebody that's going to stand up there and say, it's unconstitutional, number one. And I've always wondered how he's making a treaty anyways. And now they're starting to actually use the right word, because that's what it is. But other nations aren't going to really want to follow it. And it just shows his lack of respect for Israel when he's actually trying to give them money that they've already admitted is going to kill U.S. troops. And in case people didn't notice, we lost a couple of troops last week on an ambush. We're still at war. Regardless of what this president said, we're still losing troops. And we need to remember that. We need to remember what's happening to our people, and we still have people in harm's way.
Absolutely,
so,
Mike. I appreciate you saying that Trump has the big picture. He is a guy that where his heart is, what he's thinking, and when you play this petty little BS game, which is a politics game of who's smarter and who can memorize more names and who can do this and who can do that, it's kind of like the kid in the class that goes up and he's always kissing the teacher's behind and making everyone else feel stupid, when in fact it's sometimes maybe the funny kid that can rally everybody together and go do something. But nobody would ever follow the teacher's pet. They're just not going to. And that's what that whole thing struck me as. Anyway, Mike, thanks for the call. We appreciate you, appreciate your service and everything that you bring to the table. It's always nice to hear from Mike, especially on issues of national security. And Sean, are you able to hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Well, yeah. You coming out. You sound like you're in the clouds or something. Wow, that's powerful.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really good. That new system that you figured out. I don't know how you do it. I just got to give you some credit there.
I'm not sure I know how I do it.
Well, no, that's coming through crystal clear. Anyway, yeah. Did you hear about this going after Donald Trump on this third rate? He actually called the talk show host a third rate announcer. I'll give his name, given that Donald Trump slammed him, and it's Hugh Hewitt, who is he's one of the most boring people on the planet Earth, but he's a sycophant for the Republican Party. Anything establishment, he's all about it.
Well, if you've noticed, the entire party just wants him gone, and they will do anything and say anything to get rid of him.
Yeah, but I don't think most of the public understand that the party apparatus extends to certain radio hosts and talk and television.
Absolutely. And you're one of the few that will really just tell it like it is, and you're not on the, as they say, on the GOP payroll.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I'm sure I'm on some kind of list within the GOP, but it's not a payroll. But yeah, it just struck me as interesting. Trump is having the same problems with the same people that I did when I ran. 323-746-TALK. We'll be right back after these messages. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. Hey, if you were looking for the Radio Free California Network, you found it. And coming up later on in the show, we have a special treat for you. We have one of the most articulate, most studied individuals in the country when it comes to the illegal invasion of this country. And he speaks in no uncertain terms. He is very accurate. He is regularly quoted in national publications. Prolific author Victor Davis Hanson, who has written an article. We put it up at timdonnellyshow.com. You got to read it. How illegal immigration finally turned off the public. You know, if you're like me, I've been wondering for years when that moment was finally going to come. When were people finally going to have had enough? Because it's ludicrous. You've got to obey the law. I've got to obey the law. We want our elected officials, our law enforcement people. We want our school officials. We want everyone to obey the law. But we make special exemptions if you came here illegally because you can represent the swing vote. That's basically it. And who does the swing vote always go for when it comes to people who've come into the country illegally? Democrats. Who gave them the amnesty? Republicans. What are Republicans going to do in the future? Give them another amnesty. That's the part that is so fascinating to me. I watch the Democrat Party pander shamelessly to people who are in the country illegally. Jerry Brown and his Marxist progressive parade of Democrats, who really aren't anything like the Democrats of the JFK era, but they have created carve-out and exemption. They're the reason that Catherine Steinle died. You can thank Jerry Brown. You can thank every Democrat who voted to make California a sanctuary state. I'm glad that her parents, and I'm really glad that her father, is so outspoken. Because when you hear the pain in that man's voice, you can't argue with him. You don't see a Republican or a Democrat. You see a father. And he wants answers. So, yeah, this issue is finally exploding onto the national scene, something that we have lived with here in California for many decades, while we watched the worthless establishment in both the GOP and the Democrat Party just give away the store. Meanwhile, they give the bill to us. You work for a living. You get to pay taxes to support people who came here illegally. You have to obey the law. You have to do your jury duty. You have to do anything and everything that is required of you. But they get all the benefits of being a citizen without having to serve on a jury. Oh, but by the way, they could be a lawyer in the very courtroom that they're not authorized to sit on the jury. I mean, think about that. Think about how ludicrous that is. What kind of a message that sends? Hey, the rule of law is for sale. And the Republicans agreed to it because they want cheap labor, and the Democrats because they want cheap votes, and they want to stay in power forever. And the Republicans at the establishment level are too stupid to figure out the game. And they're continuing to do the same stupid things. Latest example, this worthless shill of a hack, Hugh Hewitt, slamming Donald Trump and trying to make him look like an idiot. You know, it's not hard. When you have a guest come on, anybody can fool anybody and make them look like an idiot. Because the guest is preparing himself for tough questions. But he's preparing himself based on who the host is. If he's going on an opposition show, he's going to prepare himself. He's going to be mentally prepared to use humor, to pause before he answers sometimes, and maybe give shorter answers. There's a whole lot of things that you do to be game ready. But when you're going on a show where you feel like you're going to have a pretty friendly conversation, you might be in a more conversational mood. And you're maybe not doing the... I don't know who would ever prepare for the names of what Trump was asked. It's just not something that's would even be in the lexicon of the normal candidate. But anybody, any host, can pull a gotcha. And it's real simple. You just ask somebody something so obscure that they have no idea. And then you pause for a long time and you make them look like they're ignorant. And that they don't have any idea. And a sincere person is not going to be able to handle that well. Now, some politicians like Bill Clinton and some others are so smooth, and maybe even Obama, that they might be able to answer it. Well, I don't even know if they could answer it, but certainly they might be able to push it aside in a way that creates a lot less of that gotcha moment. And Trump has actually done better than that than almost anyone I've seen. Sean, have you noticed that?
Oh, yes.
I mean, I love it when he says, ask me a better question. Give me a better question. I mean, come on. Move on. There's something about that engenders pride and a smile among most Americans, because they're like, hey, finally somebody told the reporter that I'm not going to answer your stupid question, so, shove it where it came from, or take it back and, put it under the rock that it escaped from.
Well, did you also know that I read this somewhere, that he can answer something like 30 questions in an hour, and Obama can answer only about 10 questions an hour and doesn't really even give you an answer? Well,
you know what, Sean, I got to say to you.
How about you, Bill?
Look, I got to interject here with you fellas. The art of not answering a question was mastered by none other than Bill Clinton, and that's myself. And I just need you to know that Barack Obama, he might be able to do what you just said, but I actually hold the record.
Mr. President, did you have sex with that woman, Miss Lewinsky?
No, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Hillary Clinton. I have not been with her in years. Now, did you see how deftly I handled that? I completely changed the subject to my marriage. And so I hold the record for answering 0 questions in an hour. And as a matter of fact, I think if this was golf, that I might have a birdie because I ask my own questions, such as, let me give you an example. It depends on what the meaning of the word is. See, now I just asked you a question, and I threw it back at you. And there you have it.
I can't answer that one.
Well, there you have it, though. But the whole point is there is an art to the political discussion, let's say. But in Trump's case, he's the anti-politician. And the anti-politician is perhaps the easiest to trip up because he's coming in there prepared to be a bull in a china shop. He's planning to talk about the issues that he knows are going to get your audience fired up. So if you're a talk show host and your goal is just to disrespect the man, to catch him with some obscure bit of knowledge that somehow he doesn't know and make him look like an ignoramus, well, 2 things are going to happen. 1, he's never going to come on your show again. But then again, that's more than likely the goal. And 2, now Trump has declared war on you. And I don't think that radio host has any idea who he's messing with. Because look at what happened to Megyn Kelly. And Megyn Kelly was an extremely popular television host. I love Megyn Kelly. I want to get that out there. She and I have worked together on some issues, particularly the CPS, where her coverage was so good, and her attitude on the issue and the sort of the mama bear, she injected herself into it in a way that really brought this whole story to the national stage that wasn't being talked about. Were you going to say something, Sean?
I was just going to say you don't want to start a war with Donald Trump.
Yeah. You because who was it that said it the other day? He doesn't. I think it was my friend John Dennis from up in San Francisco. Donald Trump does not start fights, but he finishes them. And once you have engaged him, he never stops fighting until he wins and crushes you.
Oh yeah.
So I think that individual had better beware. It's going to be an interesting fall here. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll take some of your calls coming back. 323-746-TALK. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398. Hey, this is your radio governor, Tim Donnelly. You're listening on the Radio Free California Network. We broadcast live 3 to 6 p.m. every weekday. And I still can't get over the fact that Jerry Brown wants to steal more money from you. And it's of particular interest if you're out there on the freeways right now trying to find the cheapest price on gas. Good luck. But you've got Jerry Brown wanting to double the vehicle registration fees, raise the price of fuel, increase the gas tax. Now, mind you, he isn't going to actually use it to fix the roads. That's a misnomer. He needs to raise even more taxes to do that. He forgot about it in his first budget. How illustrative is that? That we've got a governor who did not actually include the single most important infrastructure in his budget. Fixing, maintaining our highways, which are falling apart. I'm not telling you anything. I know a number of our listeners right now. You're in your cars, you're driving, you're heading out of town. You're getting stuck on narrow freeways that should have been widened years ago. But see, the problem is the government wants to control where you live. They want to control whether or not you drive or ride public transit. So what they do is they just don't make the investments that need to be made. They steal the money, but they never do the projects. And then when they finally get around to doing the projects because so much pressure has developed, then they use it as justification to raise taxes and steal, yeah, you got it, more of your money. So if you're out there on one of those freeways and you have an opinion about that, we will be glad to take you on air. 323-746-TALK. Meanwhile, want to make sure that you drive safe. Be careful out there because you are not an illegal. So if you're speeding, you're going to get a ticket. If you're driving drunk, you're going to have your car impounded. If you get into an accident, you actually have to have a driver's license and insurance. But then again, we'll be talking at the top of next hour with Victor Davis Hanson about how people have finally just had it. They have had it with illegal immigration, and of course, that's a big reason that Donald Trump is surging in the polls. And it's a big reason why the GOP
Just wake up one day and
has decided to target him. And the GOP has put their sights on him. And it's, if you're wondering when you watch Fox News, if Fox News is fair, objective, and balanced like they claim to be, I got news for you. They are going to spend as much of their time and their resources going after Donald Trump and anyone else who is a threat to the establishment, because they are an establishment GOP arm. That's all they are. I watched it during my governor's race. I'm watching it right now with Donald Trump. It's almost like deja vu all over again. And the things that they will do, I mean, it was embarrassing. It's one thing to say, look, I've got issues with this candidate, and these are my issues, and let me give you 1, 2, and 3, and here's why I like this other candidate. We will be doing that on this show, by the way. We always do that on this show. Yeah, there are 2 candidates that we really don't like because they are establishment. And they have all the money in the world, and that's Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton.
1 million businesses.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Anybody else is free to. Hey, we'll talk about them. We'll walk you through. As a matter of fact, when the Noskinator gets back, we're gonna make a checklist, and we're gonna go over the biggest issues, the ones that are sort of the push button issues in the Republican primary. And we're going to talk about it, but we'll also include the Democrats.
Go ahead, tell me.
So, hey, Sean, do you have that clip? Is that something we can hear?
Yeah, hang on here, and we'll see if we can get this up here.
Yeah, you want an example of
General Soleimani.
some BS.
Yes. Go ahead. Give me a little. Go ahead. Tell me.
He runs the Quds forces.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Do you expect
And I
his
think the Kurds,
behavior?
by the way, have been horribly mistreated by us.
No, not the Kurds. The Quds forces, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Quds forces, the bad guys.
Right.
Do you expect his behavior to change
I thought
as a
you said
result?
Kurds.
No. Quds.
I'm
Quds.
sorry. I thought you said Kurds. Because I think the Kurds have been very poorly treated by us. Go ahead.
Agreed. I'm looking for the next commander-in-chief to know who Hassan Nasrallah is, and Zawahiri, and al-Julani, and al-Baghdadi. Do you know the players without a scorecard yet, Donald Trump?
No, I'll tell you honestly, I think by the time we get to office, they'll all be changed. They'll be all gone. I knew you're going to ask me things like this, and there's no reason, because those are like history questions. Do you know this one? Do you know that one?
I don't believe in gotcha questions. I'm not trying to, quiz you on who the worst guy in the world
that is a gotcha question,
is.
though. I mean, when you're asking me about who's running.
We will be right back. Hey, it is a Getaway Friday. For those of you who are in your automobiles violating Jerry Brown's edict, mandate that you not use so much gas. But you don't care because you're an American. And you're going somewhere to do something fun on highways that are falling apart. Be careful out there, because you never know what is around the next curve or bend, or what pothole you may hit. Yes, potholes. I said potholes on California freeways because we spent all the money on illegals. And by the way, coming up at the top of next hour, you don't want to miss it. Victor Davis Hanson, who is the author of Mexifornia and other works, scholar at Stanford, Fresno State, traveling scholar, is right now in Michigan at Hillsdale College. And we have his article up at timdonnellyshow.com, so check it out, because you might want to call him with questions. He is the foremost authority on the illegal invasion of our country, and particularly how it affects the state of California. So we definitely want to get your thoughts on that. But you're flying with me and the Sean Meister, who is the technological genius that makes it possible for the Radio Free California Network to work. I don't understand almost any of it, but I am grateful. And Sean, you've got that clip. We had to cut it off in the middle. This is a clip that was played on what should have been an ordinary interview with presidential candidate Donald Trump. No big deal. But this host, Hugh Hewitt, who is a sycophant for the Republican Party, who railed and campaigned against me, never asked me on his show, never invited me, but spent all of his time criticizing me, which, hey, fine, it's freedom of speech. But now he's doing it to Donald Trump, has Donald Trump on, and this is what ensued.
Are you familiar with General Soleimani?
Yes. Go ahead. Give me a little. Go ahead. Tell me.
He runs the Quds forces.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Do you expect
and I
his
think the
behavior?
Kurds, by the way, have been horribly mistreated by us.
No, not the Kurds. The Quds forces, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Quds forces, the bad guys.
Right.
Do you expect his behavior to change as a result?
Kurds.
No. Quds.
I'm sorry. I thought you said Kurds. Because I think the Kurds have been very poorly treated by us. Go ahead.
Agreed. I'm looking for the next commander-in-chief to know who Hassan Nasrallah is, and Zawahiri, and Al Julani, and Al Baghdadi. Do you know the players without a scorecard yet, Donald Trump?
No, I'll tell you honestly, I think by the time we get to office, they'll all be changed. They'll be all gone. I knew you were going to ask me things like this, and there's no reason, because those are like history questions. Do you know this one? Do you know that one?
I don't believe in gotcha questions. I'm not trying to, quiz you on who the worst guy in the world
Well, that is a gotcha question, though. I mean, when you're asking me about who is running this, I'm not meeting these people. I'm not seeing these people. When you start throwing around names of people and where they live and, give me their address, I think it's ridiculous. The day after the election, I'll know more about it than you will ever know.
He's probably right.
Wow. That was well handled. Donald Trump, his answer there shows that he is the kind of material for a commander-in-chief. I mean, we've had to put up with a lot of mediocre individuals who have occupied the White House, some for 4 years, some for 8. Jimmy Carter comes to mind. Horrible commander-in-chief. Barack Obama, who hates this country, who is working actively against this country, and yet he is the commander-in-chief by default. So his question was so rude, and then his editorial comment. I expect the commander-in-chief to know who Oswali was and this one and that one. I don't even know who any of these people are. I mean, I've heard of them, but I don't spend my time fixated and focused on the minutia of those who seek to destroy you when they're 9,000 miles away. Because,
well, if you noticed, Hugh Hewitt sounded like he was reading them off of a card too.
Well, I'm sure he was. But the greater threat is the 300 in Washington, D.C. that are seeking to undermine and threaten freedom. Though the 97,000 employees of one agency, the IRS, I'm much more concerned about the IRS than I am about al-Zawawi and whether or not I can say his name right. But see, a true leader, Donald Trump, literally whisked him away like a fly and bitch slapped him. And I don't know if I can say that on air, but I just did, and it's too late to dump me. So there you go. But the way that he came across was someone who says, look, and this is what I was saying earlier, I'm gonna assemble my team, and the day after I'm elected president, I'll know more about that than you will ever know in your lifetime. And he is not going to gum up his brain with unnecessary things. He doesn't need to pretend knowledge that he doesn't have. He knows that he will have the people there, and he definitely knows how to pick people because he's built a massive, incredibly successful business empire, and you don't do that by yourself. So certainly, Sean, I got a question for you. I'm kind of wondering, I mean, you've been in radio a long time.
Yeah.
What was Hewitt hoping to get out of that?
Pretty much what he got. But Mr. Trump handled it very well.
Was he just trying to get on the Drudge Report to be relevant?
And he was trying to basically stump the Trump. And as you see, that kind of backfired on him just a bit.
Yeah, in a major way. And curious what you think of it. 323-746-TALK is our number. 323-746-8255 for those of you who are driving. Do you think that was fair? Do you think Donald Trump, once again, is Trump a chump or is he a hero? Love to know what you think, because that's all that matters. In the end, it's how it plays to the general public. And I think Hewitt misread his audience. A lot of the people that listen to his show love Donald Trump. And they're not going to vote for Jeb Bush just because he says so. And back to Hillary Clinton. Good Lord. I don't think we've gone through a day this month. What are we at? The 4th of September? Do I have that right? We haven't gone through a day in 2 months without a news story about some new revelation about what was in her emails. I mean, I don't know what they're thinking. This stuff should have been dumped a long time ago when nobody cared. But now they're bringing it out when people are starting to pay closer attention to the election. Yeah, this is certainly troubling. I'm waiting to see what's going to happen on the Democrat side of the aisle. Hillary is as strong as she has been, is crumbling in the polls. You've got Joe Biden in the wings. You've got others who are making noise. Have they ruled out Jerry Brown yet? I don't know if Jerry Brown has been completely taken off the table, because I know there's some part of him. He's just like, I could be president. I can do to the country what I did for California. I can raise the gas tax across the country, and we can build a high-speed rail from here to New York. Or Washington, D.C. Anyway, hey, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back, and we'll take your calls. 323-746-TALK. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398. A huge majority of Californians, surprise, surprise, a huge majority of Californians are opposed to sanctuary city policies. And if you don't know what sanctuary city policies are, and you're thinking about voting for Jeb Bush or Hillary Clinton, let me explain. A sanctuary city is not a sanctuary for American citizens. It's not a sanctuary for legal residents. It is not a sanctuary for the law-abiding. It is a city or a jurisdiction, municipality, could be a county, in which the local officials refuse to cooperate with ICE. That's Immigration Customs Enforcement. They're charged with putting detainers on criminals. So we're not talking about your everyday garden variety, quote unquote, nice illegal alien. Wait, did I just say illegal alien?
You can't say that.
I think they've tried to ban that. If I were in Washington State right now, and if I were 30 years younger and I were in school, there's a scary thought. I'd get a bad grade for using the accurate term to describe an illegal alien by actually calling them an illegal alien. But be that as it may, a sanctuary city results in the protection and the shielding of people who have come into the country illegally and then committed a crime. And then they wind up in the local jail. Well, instead of being turned over to Immigration Customs Enforcement for processing and deportation and removal from the community to protect the community from a criminal, they put them on the streets. Now, this experiment in sanctuary cities, particularly in San Francisco, it's been sort of the petri dish. Let me walk you through a little bit of history. In San Francisco, in 2006, Anthony Bologna, 48 years old, he decided he wanted to take his two boys to the baseball field and just, hit some balls, have some fun, put on their baseball caps, went to the ball field, drove over. It was a beautiful June afternoon, which in San Francisco is kind of chilly because the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco is a line for a reason. I used to live on a sailboat there, and it gets really warm in about October. But on this day, unbeknownst to Anthony, Michael, and Matthew, they were 16 and 20 years old. Unbeknownst to Danielle Bologna, who was home, and given that she had so much male energy in the house, maybe she was, kicking back, having a cup of tea or drinking a glass of wine and gardening or, reading a magazine or just kind of enjoying the peace and quiet. We don't know. But unbeknownst to all of them, Edwin Ramos had been let out of jail some 40 hours earlier. Somebody had shot at one of his homeboys, so he was on the hunt. Barely out of jail, little over 24 hours, and he has a gun, even though he is a violent criminal. He is an MS-13 gang member. That right there should have been cause enough to remove him. It turns out later, because San Francisco refuses to actually work with the Secure Communities program, which would have run his fingerprints, they would have known all this. He was wanted for murder. They didn't find this out until long after the case was finished. So he's a murderer. He was in jail at that moment for beating up a pregnant woman on a bus. Anybody who would beat up a pregnant woman on a bus doesn't deserve to be let out on the streets when they could be deported. But he was out on the hunt. He was out with his homies. He was cruising along with a gun, and Anthony, Michael, and Matthew made a wrong turn. And before they could get their car turned around, they encountered Edwin Ramos and his homeboys, who got out of the car because they were somehow impeding his path for more than 6 seconds. Now, they were wearing ball caps backwards on their head. They're Italian, Bologna. So presumably the theory is that they looked to him like the gang members who shot at his homeboy. So he filled the car with bullets. He slaughtered them in cold blood before they could even have a chance to get out of the car or get out of his way. And that shocked people who were paying attention. But the newspaper, San Francisco Chronicle and others, didn't even cover that he was illegally present. Not at first. I happened to be going to a trade show right there in downtown San Francisco. I ran across the street to get lunch, and I happened upon the newspaper and read it. I immediately knew this was an illegal alien gang member, and I knew about San Francisco's sanctuary policies, and it infuriated me. This is years before I was in elected office. I was the founder of the Minutemen, so I was very aware and very conscious of these issues, the Minutemen in California. And when that happened, I thought for sure that maybe the policy would change. You got public pressure, you got John and Ken covered it from Los Angeles. The radio hosts all across the state were talking about this. And, of course, the two players who were in charge in San Francisco, the mayor, Gavin Newsom, who is now our lieutenant governor, and the DA, Kamala Harris, who is now running, she's our attorney general, who is running for Barbara Boxer's seat in the U.S. Senate, they loved sanctuary policy. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, this is going to have a happy ending because I'm sure they did the right thing and they got rid of the sanctuary policy. Because that's a logical thing to do. When you create a policy that puts people's lives at risk, you have a moral obligation to undo that dangerous policy. Gavin Newsom just tweaked a tiny weensy bit. Kamala Harris just said, hey, I love it. It's wonderful. And when it came time to charge this vicious, brutal killer who senselessly slaughtered virtually an entire family in cold blood, she said, nah, not going to pursue the death penalty because, I have my own personal beliefs. You know what, Kamala? Screw your personal beliefs. It's about justice. You guys use that word all the time, but you never give it to people who have suffered at the hands of illegal alien criminals like Edwin Ramos, who never should have been walking on the streets of San Francisco. So what did they really do? They spread sanctuary city policy, San Francisco style, statewide. Now we have a sanctuary state, thanks to San Francisco's own Tom Amiano, and we have more victims. Catherine Steinle is the latest. 323-746-TALK. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to have Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, author of Mexifornia and other books on the illegal invasion of our country, scholar at Stanford, traveling scholar all over the country, foremost expert on all kinds of things, California. He's just an absolutely brilliant guy. You definitely want to bring your questions. Interesting parallels. We aren't the only one suffering with issues at our border. You've got Hungary right now that has just given up because so many people have pressed into their country, fleeing the scourge of ISIS and unrest in other parts of the world. And I was reading this article, and it was kind of interesting because Hungary is a poor country, and they don't know what to do. So they've thrown up their hands. They're providing buses to bus them through their country to get them into the next country, hopefully a richer country. And when they talk to the people who are moving in illegally, and many of them are Islamic, fleeing the complete chaos created by ISIS, they're saying, hey, our goal is Germany. We want to go to Germany because Germany's a rich country, and they must think they're going to get fair treatment there. Obviously, Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany said it's a legal and moral imperative for Europe to provide sanctuary. Some countries, including Britain, have responded reluctantly, while Hungary has been downright hostile because Hungary's worried about their hungry citizens. They want to protect their own. But Merkel, the leader of Germany, she's going to get what she wants. They're going to make it through, and they're going to come to Germany. And then the German taxpayers are going to have to pay for them. And last time I checked, the German taxpayers weren't very excited about that, and they have that in common with the American taxpayers. We don't want more people coming into our country illegally who can't provide for themselves, for whom we will have to provide medical, education, food, and housing. All of these things cost money, and now you're tapping into pools of resources that were put there to take care of your own citizens who are out of work. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this headline, Sean, but the more people out of work since I believe the last time that Jerry Brown was in the governor's mansion. Actually, I don't think he didn't really sleep in the mansion, did he? He kind of slept on the floor in his office and had a bunch of people around him that were smoking pot.
Linda Ronstadt's apartment.
Yeah, right. But let me just find the statistic here real quick, because this is the correlation, and I'm sure it's no different in Germany, but we've got a record 94 million Americans who are not in the labor force. The participation rate is the lowest since 1977. A record 56 million women are not working. Yeah, I don't think Hillary Clinton's going to fix that. I don't think Jeb Bush is going to fix that. The only person that seems to show the chutzpah, the cojones, I'm using all these other words, the balls, okay, there it is, to stand up, the testicular fortitude, is Trump. And you heard it in that clip where he took on that third-rate talk show host, who shall now remain nameless once again on this show because he's so worthless. I just have no use for people that play these stupid little political games that mean nothing because they're shills for candidates because somehow they're getting paid. That's the bottom line. There's money coming to them somehow, some way. I don't know what it is because I am not on the GOP payroll. I'm on the GOP hate roll. I'm on their target list. But these are the issues that your presidential candidate is going to be grappling with. I don't think Hillary can get past the emails to figure out how she's going to deal with a crisis of international significance, the lack of or the inability of the world, starting with our country, because we're generally the ones who save the world, to effectively deal with ISIS, has created havoc in other parts of the world. And that has created a refugee crisis that is now overwhelming Europe. And you have a lot of Europeans who are starting to say, hey, we don't want that here. We do not want more problems. We do not want more people that we have to take care of until we can balance our own and right our own ship. It's very reminiscent. And you know, Sean, I think we could see something like that. We don't see it. See, here it's sort of invisible. People sneak across the border. They overstay their visas. They've come in drip by drip. And generally they spread out to the rest of the country. But of course now they're coming here to California because we give out so much free stuff. We've created a sanctuary state. Look, if you're illegally present in the United States, come on to California. Anything, everything you want. And I do not see a single candidate that is prepared to deal with that issue with any kind of change of direction, with any kind of visionary policy and clear-headed thinking an ability to make decisions based on principles that has articulated. Now, look, there maybe a lot of this is going to come out a little bit later. Some people like to put out their ideas first. That was Trump. Other people might want to come later. I know a number of the candidates came up with a Me Too sort of immigration plan. But this is the single biggest issue. And you'll get a taste of that when we talk to Dr. Victor Davis Hanson at the top of the hour. This is, I think it's the defining issue of the election. So it's really important to know where your candidate stands on it. And some of the candidates I like, I'm a little bit concerned. I like Scott Walker a lot when he takes on the public sector unions. There isn't anybody better on that. But when it comes to the border, he's a little too wobbly and a little too vague. And that's by design. That's not accidental. Dr. Ben Carson, I have no idea where he stands. And Carly Fiorina has made some troubling statements. As much as I love her business acumen, I would not want to put her in charge of leading U.S. policy on what we do with that. So I would not support her for president. I might be able to live with her as vice president, depending on who we had as a presidential candidate. But certainly Trump is the only one to come out head and shoulders above the rest. And you see it. He continues to surge in the polls as a result. Now, there is one poll that just came out that shows, they started showing the matchups. Did you see that one, Sean?
Yes.
And it looked like Carson was positioned to maybe overtake him if it was a head-to-head.
Yeah, he's very, very close to the top right now.
Yeah, that's man, all these racist Republicans supporting a black
I know, isn't it?
A black American. You think maybe the lamestream media or left stream media will ever change their narrative?
They'll just quit talking about it.
Yeah. We would not want to put out the truth.
No,
because the truth is always more complicated. I don't know if you heard the other day, we had a retired Navy chief, Walter Milner, on the show, and he was
great interview.
Wow. He was off the charts, clear-headed, had some great thoughts on Trump and the GOP. And his question was, should Trump sign the loyalty pact? He said, absolutely not. He should have ripped it up right in front of him and said, why would I sign loyalty to the GOP when the GOP has been disloyal to us? We're the ones who gave you the House. We're the ones who gave you the Senate. How'd you reward us? Did you do the two simple things we asked you to do? You know, it kind of sounds like, your spouse. Did you do the two simple things I asked you to do on the way home from work, honey? And yet they didn't. Repeal Obamacare, or at least try, and get rid of the Obama executive amnesty. How hard is that? All they had to do is defund it. They're in control.
You know what I think they should have asked, or what he should have asked them is, if I sign this, are you going to back me if I win the nomination?
Yeah, when you're being demonized by your own party, there is a temptation to want to be liked, to want to sit down and sort of play nice. But the problem is the person sitting in front of you is usually really good at saying whatever you want to hear, because they're not the ones with their fingerprints on the knife in your back. They've got other people doing that. They're well aware of everything that's going on, but they're not culpable. You can't trace it to them. And yet they're fully on board with undermining you and cutting your knees out. And I think the question is, Trump becomes the nominee. I think the GOP works hard to split the party instead of actually supporting him. Because, see, they think their hope lies, like the Democrats do, in pandering to the people who've come here illegally. Anyway, we're long for a break. 323-746-TALK. We'll take your calls just before we have Dr. Victor Davis Hanson coming up shortly. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turner's is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Hey, if you are just tuning in, where have you been? You're a little late to the party. We're halfway through. But it is a getaway Friday as people are seeking to escape the city and head either to Vegas, up north, maybe to the Napa Valley, or many people heading out to the river and out to the sea like the Delta smelt. Looking for a little fresh air and fresh water. Well, not fresh water in the ocean, but clean water would be nice. Certainly. It's been one of those summer. I'm not sure if we're supposed to call it summer or global warming, because it's confusing. Every time you turn around, they've got a new word for it. Barack Obama was up in Alaska. He renamed a mountain. No idea what the point of that is. He didn't say a word about the oil industry there, which, if we built the pipeline, if we supported American oil companies, and I don't mean support like the government support, I mean get out of their way. Let them exploit the natural resource so that we can have cheap gas. Yeah, I said that. I'm not one of these Greenpeace people, because usually when you go the green route, it costs more and it isn't very green. It just looks green, or it sounds green, or it seems like a really, really good idea, but it isn't. You know, you can have an electric car, you can plug that thing in, but then more electricity has to be produced. And some of the ways that we produce electricity produce the same dreaded greenhouse gases that the left is so afraid of. And yet you could have a more efficient 4-cylinder motor, kind of like what they have in a lot of the Toyota trucks and small cars like the Toyota Corolla. And you could actually be good, quote unquote, for the environment, driving a fully gas-powered engine, than you are when you get into your herd of Prii and gallivant around the streets as if you've somehow saved the planet. I almost got hit by one yesterday, and I was wondering to myself, if a Prius hits me, is it the same as a regular car? Does it dent? Because we've been led to believe that somehow they're a higher order. They're above us, sort of floating effortlessly through the clouds, when in fact you got to plug them in when you get home, and you're tapping even more energy. But it sounds really good. It's like a lot of ideas. It's kind of like Jerry Brown, who here in California is obsessed. Sean, you're lucky you don't live here, because you wouldn't be able to take a shower after a hard day's work. You climb up a mountain, you come home, you don't get to take a shower because Jerry Brown is determined that you are going to be rationed and penalized if you go over 3.5 minutes.
Ridiculous.
And since when was the government supposed to be in charge of that? They were supposed to be in charge of building the water infrastructure We authorized them to do that years ago. Jerry Brown put a stop to it. It was his dad's vision. Pat Brown, Edmund Brown, had some vision. He thought if you built the infrastructure, the people would come, and they had a massive immigration boom. And all of a sudden, California became the most thriving economy in the post-war era in the entire country. And then Jerry was like, wow, there's too many people here. We got to stop this. We got to protect the environment. Well, you can protect the environment and be intelligent about providing resources for the people who are residents of your state. Hey, Dr. Victor Davis Hanson coming up right after this break. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344.
By the record machine, I knew he must have been about 17.
Hey, you are listening to the Radio Free California Network, and I am your radio governor in the state of California, because you don't have a real governor. You're stuck with Jerry Brown, who continually undermines the rule of law and has made California a sanctuary state for illegal alien criminals, and it's made it the locus of the illegal invasion of our country. We're going to bring on air, we've been talking about it all day, Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, who has an incredible article. It's up at timdonnellyshow.com. It is How Illegal Immigration Has Finally Turned Off the Public. Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure and a privilege. Your article is so clear thinking, and I want you to break it down for our audience. I mean, you start out with the fact that this issue has gotten this far because the activists, the Latino activists, the activists for those who are in the country illegally, have hijacked the entire messaging and the narrative, and the biggest one they've used is racism and race.
Yes, latest poll, YouGov in New Mexico, showed that a majority of Latinos were for building the wall. And what we're seeing is, because after all, they're the ones who were impacted in their emergency rooms or local schools, their freeways, they get hit by drivers who leave the scene of the accident with no license, no registration, no insurance, more often than people in gated estates in La Jolla or something. But my point is that everything is upside down. People who want the federal law enforced are slurred as xenophobes and nativist and racist, and actually the Latino elite, and let's remember the stellar National Latino Organization is the National Council of La Raza, a word that means, let's face it, it means race. It's not used in European countries like Italy, Raza, or Spain because of its odious history under Franco and Mussolini to denote racial superiority. And the word regained currency in the 60s by the Latino chauvinist movement precisely because it said La Raza doesn't mean that you're a Mexican citizen or you're American or Mexican or you speak Spanish, but you have a unique racial makeup. So it's a really odious word, and that this national organization would be using it is really disturbing. And then this Latino leadership would not be objecting to illegal would not be for illegal immigration, which is essentially what they're doing. If it was Chinese or Southeast Asian, or if we had 3,000 Nigerians coming in, I imagine they'd be very upset about it. So the issue is inseparable from the fact that people are coming from a particular place, Latin, Central America, and Mexico. That's what they're in.
So you're saying, in essence, that this is much more about identifying as a racial group and then sort of building racial solidarity using illegal immigration as the means to bring in more people and then get them to identify as part of La Raza, the race.
I am, but I'm also saying it's incoherent because if you go sample what we are getting out of, say, the latest UC Irvine attempt to ban the U.S. flag by a student group, some of them who were Latino activists, or you look at Chicano studies departments, the thrust of that message is that the United States is racist, nativist, culpable, and not an enviable place. And yet Mexico is sending 1/10 of its population to come into the United States. It makes no sense because if you were to take the Latino leadership, it only has complaints against the majority culture. You would say, well, if it's so bad, why are people wanting to come here? Or if you think it's so bad, why do you want people to come here? In the case of Mexico, Mexico has over 50 consulates here. It has a constitution that says in its constitution that immigration shall not alter the racial demography of Mexico. It's a felony to be an illegal alien in Mexico, and you're jailed if you engage in any political activity if you're a legal alien. And if you take a job and you're illegally there, you're going to be jailed as a felon. Yet that country is calling us illiberal, as we see in a lot of the commentary of Jorge Ramos. And think again, Mexico and Central America get $50 billion. That's probably about $300 to $500 a month from illegal aliens.
$50
and
billion.
That's the largest source of foreign revenue except for oil in the case of Mexico.
That's astonishing.
And it is, and it means that they're very cynically, and I mean that literally cynically, because they printed a comic book, how to get across the border, and that implies two things. Break U.S. law, and we don't expect that you can read, but here's a picture to show you how to do it. And they encourage people to leave and then to live very frugally or on public assistance, and we're told by the Center for Immigration Studies that 50% of all immigrant families are on public assistance. Save or scrounge out $300 to $500 a month and send that back to Mexico to subsidize what the Mexican government will not do. And this latest wave of immigration is racist to the core because most of the people who are coming into, say, California are indigenous people from Chiapas and especially Oaxaca that cannot find redress from the Mexican government that will not extend them social services as it does its other populations. And when you add in the idea that it's a safety valve so people will march north rather than march on Mexico City for the inequality they experience and the racism, and then to have that government lecture us on our supposed illiberality, it's really hard to take. And so the whole thing is just so incoherent and it's so politically correct. And when you get to sanctuary cities, you think, my gosh, this is a neo-Confederate, reactionary, right-wing idea that we haven't seen in America since the 1850s, that a state or local government can tell the federal government, your law does not apply in our environs. That's something that caused the Civil War. If you can imagine Provo, Utah saying, you know what, we are a sanctuary city, the Endangered Species Act no longer applies in our county, or gun control laws have
wait a minute.
effect.
I like those ideas.
Exactly. Everybody would like a particular city to have a particular law that overrides federal law. But as we saw in the case of the Kentucky federal clerk, Kim Davis, if you try that, you're going to go to jail. And she said that federal law as interpreted, not a federal law, but as interpretation by the Supreme Court, doesn't apply to me, and we jailed her. Think of what San Francisco did, and somebody died for it. Nobody died in Kentucky. So the entire debate about illegal immigration is just completely incoherent. It's nihilistic, it's racist, and it's Confederate. And it's all under the guise that these are very liberal people. They're not liberal people. They're not. And most of the people of the elite of the Bay Area, like a Mark Zuckerberg went down to the mega estate of Carlos Slim and announced that the United States, his own country, while he's in a foreign country, he's trashing his own country, said that it was illiberal the way we treat immigrants. Then he went back to Palo Alto and has systematically been buying up estates all around his home so that he can pick and choose his neighbors, because he doesn't live that far from Redwood City, which is now predominantly a Hispanic community, and many of them illegal immigrants. So if you start to examine this debate, you see that people like Jorge Ramos, who puts his children in private school, or Jeb Bush, who does the same, they are insulated from the ramifications of their own ideology. It's almost like medieval penance. It's almost like, well, I'm putting my kids in private school, and I live in an all-white or an all-exclusive neighborhood, and I feel so bad about it that I want open borders and let Hispanics come in from Mexico, and they will live in places like Visalia or Bakersfield or Tulare or Selma and Sanger with lower middle-class people, and if they impact the schools or the emergency rooms of Hispanic, American, Mexican-American citizens, that's their problem. But I feel good about myself as long as I can use my capital and influence and status to escape the consequences. And so, and it's gone on because people in your audience, me, you, everybody has not been courageous enough to look somebody in the eye and say, you're not telling the truth, or you're a hypocritical, or you're a racist yourself. And until we do that, I think that it's never going to do. When Hillary Clinton says she's disturbed about the tone of the immigration debate, and then she steps on the podium of La Raza, the National Council of La Raza annual meeting, what are they supposed to laugh or cry?
Good question. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. We've got Dr. Victor Davis Hanson on the line talking about his latest article, How Illegal Immigration Finally Turned Off the Public. It is brilliant. It's up at timdonnellyshow.com. We'll be right back. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turner's is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. We are talking with Dr. Victor Davis Hanson. He is an expert on many things, the Peloponnesian Wars among them. He is also one of the foremost experts in the country on the illegal invasion of the United States by countries like Mexico. He's written a book called Mexifornia. He is a professor extraordinaire. He has taught at places like Stanford and others. He's right now on I don't know if you call it a sabbatical, but it's some sort of a program that he does every year at Hillsdale College in Michigan. And he joins us on the Radio Free California Newsmaker line. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Hanson.
Thank you.
So I got a question. In reading your article, which, by the way, we have up at timdonnellyshow.com with the link back to your website, is you break the myths open. You really break it down by the numbers, and you've identified 6 essential parts of it. And there's all these myths that somehow illegal aliens commit crimes at a lower rate than the rest of the population. It just sounds completely counterintuitive to the truth.
No, it's based on a faulty analogy that they took some cities that had high populations of illegal immigrants near the border that didn't have disproportionately high crime rates, and that doesn't prove anything. What you want to know is what is the percentage of federal prisoners that are convicted, not just charged, but convicted, and the California state prisoners versus the number of illegal aliens estimated in the general population. And if you do that, you're in the federal level, you're up to about 24% of all federal prisoners are illegal aliens. It's well over 250,000. And in California, we have over 20,000 prisoners alone that are illegal aliens. And when you look at Texas's violent crime rate the last 3 years, we're up to about 28 to 32% of violent assaults and crimes were committed by illegal aliens.
So if 24%,
it's not even controversial. Everybody accepts that. And
if 24% of the federal prisoners are
20 to 24, it depends. It goes back and forth over the last 5 years, but they're illegal aliens.
But even if you accept the government's number that there are 11 to 20 million illegals in the country, which I don't. I believe you need to triple it. But let's pick a number in between and say 30 million are here illegally. That would be 10% of the U.S. population.
Yeah, if you whatever statistic you use should be consistent. If you accept that there's only 220,000 prisoners, some have said more, then if you accept the government there's 11 million, you're getting down to 2 or 3% of a population is being incarcerated at about 10 times their numbers.
There you go. That's what I was driving at, but you did it much more deftly than I did.
That's what we're looking at, and and if you look at what we were told that participation rates on public assistance was well below their numbers in the general population, and the Center for Immigration Studies just came out with a pretty accurate estimate, I think, that it's more around 50% of illegal immigrant households are on public assistance. The old conservative government estimation was 25%. If you look what the Labor Bureau says, that in 9 or 10 categories of wages that have declined in the last 8 years, and they've declined from anywhere from 3 to 9%. If you look at which, they're not lawyers, they're not doctors, they're not academics, they're not journalists. They're things like food servers, attendants, health attendants, janitors. They're people, entry-level jobs, and the obvious inference, and this is what the Department of Labor said before, that it was competition from illegal workers coming in. So this idea that Americans won't do that job, it's only half right. They won't do that job at subsistence wages. And so we have a very odd alliance from the very wealthy who want cheap labor, and then the Latino activists and the Democratic Party that want constituents. And believe me, that most of the Latino activists like Jorge Ramos don't suffer their children to be in schools that don't have advanced placement because they had to drop it for remedial language classes because so many people can't speak English. They find a way to get around that. So if you're a third-generation Latino and you don't even speak Spanish and you are agitating for an open border, you're not going to suffer the consequences, but you like the idea there's a lot of illegal aliens because when you cross the border from Oaxaca, you don't reach parity immediately and you become a statistic that your income, your education level is disproportionate to the average American. Of course it is. You're coming from the third world. And therefore, we have to make some type of parity or we have to have some type of reparation, and that usually means affirmative action or set-asides or preference or diversity consideration for whom? Not the person from Oaxaca who's trying to get a job as a janitor or a landscaper, but from a second or third generation upscale middle-class Latino who wants to be a professor or a journalist and has a Hispanic name.
So wait a minute. Are you advancing the idea that there is a Latino privilege as opposed to white privilege?
Yeah, I am. And I say that as a person whose family is intermarried, and I can tell you that the members of my family who are Latino, even though they don't speak Spanish very well, or if at all, but they have a Latino name, have had more doors open to them than people that did not have that name. And that theory was based on the idea that Latinos as a larger group are not doing as well, and therefore they need a activist government role to help them. But the fact that they're not doing well is not because of second and third generation who've already reached parity. It's because the pool keeps being enlarged by indigent, poor people from the third world that have 8th grade educations. They don't speak English. They have no capital. They have no skills. They come across the border. And in our strange mindset, we have to say, well, they have to be immediately equal to an American citizen, or something's racist about the United States.
Well, one thought I have when you're saying that, one thought that I have is that immediately means that we need more government programs to help them, and then we need more people to run those government programs. So now we are growing government, and nobody's really noticing because they're looking over here.
Politicians to fund those. So we have more politicians to fund those programs, and they have to be advocates of big government, and they have more constituents. So, and then the guest community, its activists say, you can't, I don't think they've ever read Animal Farm or 1984 by George Orwell, because immediately they want to change the reality by changing the language. So you couldn't use the word illegal immigrant. Then it was illegal, then it was unlawful immigrant. Now they prefer just immigrant. You cannot use the word anchor baby. So they're trying to change language.
Well, they better tell that to Donald Trump.
I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is resonating with people because, as I said in the article, they're fed up. And they don't like to be called racist when they see people who are, A, hypocritical and don't live by their own rhetoric, and B, violate the law in a way they would not want federal law otherwise violated. And you can't, it's a slippery slope. If you tell a citizen you have to file your income tax by April 15th because that's a federal law, and you tell another citizen, well, you broke the law when you came in the United States, and you have filed a number of false ID or affidavits, or you have not been truthful on applications about your legal status, and those are all misdemeanors, in some cases felonies, but we're not going to prosecute you.
Dr. Hansen, can we hold you over one more break?
Okay.
Okay. Hey, we will have more coming up with Dr. Victor Davis Hansen right after this break. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. Hey, you are listening to the Radio Free California Network. I am the radio governor of California, Tim Donnelly. We have on the phone with us a scholar who is an expert, foremost expert in the country, in my opinion, on, and in many people's opinion, on the illegal invasion of our country, Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, who has written an incredible article, How Illegal Immigration Finally Turned Off the Public. So, Dr. Hanson, what was it? What was the final straw? What broke the camel's back here with the public finally waking up to what's going on?
I think it was when the numbers hit well over 11, 12 million, and then the guest told the host the conditions under which the host had to accept their presence. In other words, when somebody comes to your home, then you expect them to show some modicum of deference for your hospitality, but the host was told, don't use this word, you can't use this type of language, you must do this, and if you don't do this and we don't find it acceptable, then we're going to call you a racist. And by the way, the country that we, under no circumstance, want to go back to is the country whose flag and who we will cheer at sports events and that we're going to romanticize, and which is cynically sending us to you in a way that it would never receive anybody if it were accorded the same treatment. And that was just too much for the American population to take.
So they finally, because it seems
show that it's a losing issue for Democrats. It doesn't mean that the American people want to round up every single working person who's here illegally that's never committed a crime. But it does mean that they want that person to comply with the law. And there might be a great argument whether the person should have to go back to Mexico or can gain a temporary green card if he hasn't broken the law, he hasn't taken public assistance, he's been here, say, 3 or 4 years at least, and he wants to apply, pay a penalty, a fine, and get a green card. And whatever he does after that's his own business, like it is to anybody with a green card. Do you
think that's what the future looks like? Is some
I think
sort of
the future is going to be build a wall, find the employer for hiring illegal aliens, deport the 1 million or 2 million people who have a criminal record, deport the people who never have any history of work, they immediately got on public assistance, deport the people who just got here cynically for amnesty, and you're going to be left with about 8 or 9 million people who are working and have never committed a crime and are not on, maybe 3 to 5 million, I don't know, are not on public assistance, and we can say to them, you're eligible if you pay this fine, you learn English, you pass a test to get a green card. If you got a green card, then like every other green card person from Kenya to Korea to Switzerland, what you do after that is your own business, and we can periodically extend it. And I have a feeling that most people who get a green card, based on what we saw in the 1986 Simpson-Mazzoli, will not apply for citizenship because their children will, under this anchor baby interpretation of a Supreme Court decision, they're going to be citizens anyway, and they're not going to need to become citizens. They don't want to become citizens. But that remains to be seen. But I think that's the answer. I don't think that anybody on the Republican side wants to put every illegal alien in a boxcar, as Hillary Clinton implied, out of the nomenclature of the Holocaust and send them back to Mexico. Mexico does that, but we're not going to do that. But we will, I think, and I think we must deport people who have broken the law and have no record of productive labor, but have just been on public assistance. And that's going to be several 100,000, if not a couple of million people.
Well, the Jorge Ramoses of the world don't want a single person deported.
They don't want a single person. No, they don't want one person deported, not one. And they don't care whether that person is a 7-time deportee, 5-time felon, like Mr. Sanchez in San Francisco who killed Kate Steinle. And I'm just a normal citizen, but in my last 20 years, I've been hit 3 times in an auto accident. And one case, the person tried to call her family to remove the car and begged me not to call the highway patrolman. She rear-ended me. The second time, a person ran the stop sign and took off running and left his car there. And the third time, somebody swerved, missed me, and went into my vineyard and took off running. And I'm not an exceptional person, so I know that is replicated hundreds of thousands of times in the American Southwest that people who don't have much experience driving get on the road. They're not subject to American traffic law. They don't know much about them. They hit somebody. They have no registration. They have no driver's license, and they have no insurance. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And people are tired of it. That's happened to them. They've been in this idea that the left says that everybody's a dreamer. Or when I taught for 21 years at the CSU campus, why would somebody who's a U.S. citizen from Nevada have to pay 3 times more in out-of-state tuition than an illegal alien who's not a U.S. citizen in California? It doesn't make any sense. And yet that happens in all 22 campuses.
Yeah, I came here as a student, and I paid the 3 times the tuition until I became a California resident, which took over a year. And,
and that happens to a lot of my Latino students. I have Latino students from Texas, and they came here. They're U.S. citizens, and they paid 3 times more tuition than somebody who had broken federal law and was here illegally. And I think that you put all of these scenarios together, and the average citizen of every walk of life says, you know what? I have a personal experience with illegal immigration, and it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant. I know that a lot of people do a lot of hard work, but there's too many who don't, and there's too many who commit crimes, and they create an image that the left has been very hard-pressed to overcome.
And what are we doing? What are we doing to the rule of law by tolerating
it? We destroyed it. And I don't know how you restore the rule of law when you tell a Korean, or you tell a Nigerian, or you tell a Finn that has a PhD or an engineering degree or a Punjabi, you can't come in legally. You wait 7 years. You got to follow this statute. When we don't even enforce that for people who don't have those skills. Or what do we do to a city, as I said? I think we're going to see a lot of this sanctuary city in a different context, where cities are going to say, and we saw it again in Texas, where a woman said that my particular jurisdiction is immune from federal law, and we're not going to accept gay marriages. Now, she was jailed, but maybe a sympathetic judge might not have jailed her, because if you can say federal law no longer applies in San Francisco or Los Angeles, then any city in the United States can take any federal law and say we're not going to enforce it. If you want to carry a gun and you want to buy a gun the day you see it in a gun store, and you don't want to have a federal waiting period, come to my city. If you want to go shoot a red-tailed hawk in the park, come to my city. You can do whatever you want here. And I think that's very right-wing. It's very odd that these very progressive people are adopting the attitude, the mentality, the philosophy of the old Confederacy, because that's what it was based on, the nullification of federal law.
It is certainly going to be interesting to see if there's any sort of civil disobedience that goes along those lines, because at some point when you depend on voluntary compliance with the law, and when you're a constitutional republic built on the rule of law, and you lose the rule of law as your foundation, doesn't by necessity the constitutional republic crumble and voluntary compliance gets out of control?
I think so, and it's unfortunately not just illegal immigration. As we saw with Lois Lerner and Hillary Clinton, there are particular individuals who don't feel that they are subject to the consequences of breaking the law. They're exempt, and we see it whether it's amnesty or whether we see it with suspension of some elements of the Affordable Care Act, or whether we see a particular company like Boeing, or whether we see a particular individual like the video maker Nakula who was jailed. Under this administration, you get the idea that the law is subject to revolutionary justice, and whether it's enforced or not depends on who it's targeted and what the political persuasion is. That's the landscape around the support of the apparent crime. And I think everybody's understanding that now, that if you're a conservative or if you're a traditionalist in some way, the law will fall very heavily upon you. But if you can argue you're a victim, or you have a particular race, class, and gender that's sympathetic to the aspirations of the Obama administration, the federal law will not apply to you. It just won't happen.
Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, thank you for coming on the show today. As always, I feel as if I have been in a high-level graduate course. Whenever I hear you talk or read anything you've written, you are truly a scholar and a great American. And I want to thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule. And God bless you.
Thank you.
Take care. Godspeed. Hey, we will be right back with your calls, 323-746-TALK. So stay tuned. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398.
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love. You never take advice. Someday you'll pay.
Hey, you are listening to the Tim Donnelly Show on a Getaway Friday. And we're going to go straight to the phones. We don't have much time left. Hey, welcome to the show.
Oh, hi, Tim. I'm Mark. I'm calling from Barstow. Hey, you got a great show, and you just spoke with a brilliant man. I read anything and everything that he writes.
Thank you, Mark.
What I'd really like to know is what's the solution to the anchor baby issue? I live in Southern California, and based on what I do, I know a lot of it is going on. It's heading this way, and it heads almost to all 50 states. So what's the solution to that?
I did not address that with him specifically, but I do know that there are a couple of schools of thought. But one is that there needs to be a reinterpretation of the 14th Amendment, which was intended for the children of slaves and is now being applied to people. And at the time, they were people who would be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And they're not. They're not subject to the jurisdiction here because they're illegally present. So the only subjugation, if that's such a word, would be, if we were to actually carry out the law, would simply be their removal. So it seems to me that would be the logical conclusion. Some people think you need to completely change the 14th Amendment. Well, it's virtually impossible. And it would be impossible in this political climate that's so polarized to get a constitutional amendment passed. But something must be done because this is completely out of control.
Well, I agree. And I really like your show. And if you can have him on again, I will be sure to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great weekend. We're going to bring on John from North Carolina. John, welcome.
How you doing this evening?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm chiming in right behind that guy. I had a couple questions I would have liked to ask him, like what is the answer? And I feel like you have to start somewhere. These invaders they're out in the hot sun and they do it every day. Well, guess what? So do I, and I'm out when it's 15 degrees too. So, but my point is, these fat cats that prosper by capitalism, now all of a sudden they wanted to redistribute their wealth to lesser paid
No, they don't want to redistribute their wealth. They want to redistribute your wealth, John,
exactly.
and my wealth.
That's my point. That's my point exactly. So give these jobs to U.S. citizens, whether they're from Mexico or I don't care where they're from, but take care of number one, which is America. And they need to assimilate, speak our language, and do everything that we do here. This is the greatest nation in the world, and I'll never quit believing it. And that's just all there is to it. That's the bottom line.
Well, I couldn't have said it better, but here's the simple truth. All you described was the immigration process. They're bypassing the immigration process, and their accomplices are both the Republican and Democrat parties and the Republican Democrat donors, the top 1%. Whether it's George Soros or whether it's the Koch brothers, they want the same thing. They want unlimited cheap labor, and they don't understand that the Republicans don't, that by bringing in unlimited cheap labor and undermining the blue collar guy or gal, that they're hurting this country, first of all, but second of all, they're giving the Democrats a massive voter registration drive for free.
Oh yeah. And that's that constant underclass of voters that don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah, and so they wind up. Well, they vote whatever the party tells them to do, and they don't pay attention to the true implications. And they also have been brainwashed with a narrative, a very emotional narrative, where emotional language is used. It's emotionally charged.
They always work off emotion instead of, exactly.
So you're not allowed to use terms like illegal alien. Illegal invader, good Lord, John, we're going to have to put you in jail for that.
Invader,
you can be
invader.
in jail with that. You'll be in jail with Kim Davis and others who have violated the I don't know what, the PC code.
I respect what she's doing greatly. I respect her holding her ground.
Well, we need people in this country that will take a stand against a machine. Our government has become a machine that just rolls over people, strips them of their rights, strips them of their freedom, and then tells them that everything's fine and dandy, when in fact there's so many people out of work. We're all the way back to Jimmy Carter years.
Oh yeah, almost the year I graduated. That's why I had to relocate. Hey, do you have time for a quick story? Because you were ranting about...
Make it quick.
I'll make it real quick. I had to go to Pennsylvania last June 14. I was coming through coal country in an area that said truckers and RVs and, top-heavy vehicles, beware of wind. I was coming through coal country, and I looked across my out to the right, and there was probably 10, 12 windmills. These energy things, right smack dab in the middle of coal company. And guess what? None of them were moving. There was not enough wind to make any of them move.
So the green energy,
it sucks.
It doesn't work. Hey, John, thanks for the call. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. You do the same.
I don't do this show by myself. I want to thank my wife for letting me, Bethany Nosko, the Noskinator, who, while she isn't here, is still a great producer. Sean McNeil, who did a great job filling in and is the technological genius that built this studio and keeps it running against all odds. And Cassie Cassidy, our intrepid guest booker, and of course, all of our sponsors and you, because without you, we don't have an audience. So be safe out there. Have a great weekend. God bless you and Godspeed. Tim Donnelly Show out.